They said she had only 10 days to live. 10 days before the billionaire's little girl would take her last breath. But what no one knew was that a 9-year-old homeless boy, a child with nothing, was about to do the impossible. Before we dive in, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The night the world shattered began like any other for the Lavier family, a night painted in gold and applause. The grand hall of the Lavier Foundation sparkled beneath chandeliers shaped like constellations, reflecting on glass floors that seemed to hold stars beneath them. Billionaires, world leaders, and the most powerful people on earth gathered to celebrate one thing: the success of a man who owned everything money could buy. Alexander Lavier, with his sharp gray suit and sharper reputation, was the kind of man people whispered about. He'd built an empire from the ground up. Technology, real estate, global ventures. Every corner of the world carried his mark. To many, he was untouchable. But to one person, he was just dad. That person was Evelyn Lavier, his 14-year-old daughter, the heartbeat of his world. Evelyn was different. She wasn't dazzled by wealth or power. She spent her days visiting orphanages, feeding stray animals, and writing in a small notebook she carried everywhere. In that notebook were dreams. Dreams of building schools where no one would be turned away, of creating hope for children who had none. Her compassion was her rebellion in a world blinded by luxury. That evening, dressed in a simple white gown while others flaunted diamonds, Evelyn took the stage to thank her father's guests for their generosity toward a charity she had started, Dream Seeds. Her voice was soft but steady, her words so pure that for a moment, even the cynical hearts in the crowd were moved. Then it happened. Her voice faltered mid-sentence. The color drained from her face. The microphone fell from her trembling hand as she clutched her chest and gasped for air. The hall erupted into chaos. Alexander's world slowed into fragments, a scream, the sound of heels clicking frantically, a wine glass shattering on marble. He caught his daughter before she hit the floor. Her skin was cold, her pulse faint. "Evelyn! Evelyn, look at me!" His voice cracked, something it had never done before. Her eyes fluttered open, a whisper escaping her lips. "Daddy." "I can't breathe." Then everything went dark. The following hours blurred into panic. Helicopters thundered over the city as the Lavier private medical team airlifted Evelyn to their top research hospital. The best doctors from Tokyo, London, and Geneva were flown in overnight. Every machine, every monitor, every heartbeat was watched with obsessive precision. For 48 hours, Alexander didn't move from her bedside. His tie hung loose, his hands shaking. Hands that once signed billion-dollar deals now helpless to hold on to one fragile life. Then came the verdict. The doctors entered with solemn faces, the kind that no parent should ever see. "Mr. Lavier," began Dr. Singh, the world's leading neurologist, his voice heavy. "Your daughter's condition is unprecedented. A rare neurocellular collapse. Her body is attacking itself. No treatment has worked. We estimate—" He hesitated. Alexander's voice was barely a whisper. "How long?" 10 days, the doctor said. "At most." The words hit like a wrecking ball. 10 days. For a man who measured life in profits and power, time had always been something he controlled. Until that moment. Outside the hospital, the world watched. News networks ran non-stop coverage. Billionaire's daughter battles rare disease. Crowds left flowers, handwritten notes, even prayers at the hospital gates. Inside, the halls of the Lavier medical wing felt colder than any winter. Evelyn's mother, Isabella, locked herself in her room, unable to face her daughter's fading smile. Alexander buried himself in phone calls, wiring millions to labs and researchers around the globe, chasing miracles that science couldn't sell. But Evelyn, she didn't cry. She lay in her bed surrounded by machines that hummed like lullabies, staring at the window where sunlight spilled across her blankets. In her journal, the one she never let go of, she wrote slowly with trembling hands, "Maybe some lives are meant to shine brightly, even if only for a short time. If I must go, I hope I leave behind a little bit of light." She smiled faintly, closed her eyes, and drifted into dreams that her body could no longer follow. Across the city, in a world that existed under the billionaire's shadow, another life unfolded. Noah Carter, age 9, sat beneath an overpass, his back pressed against cold concrete, watching cars stream by like rivers of light. His clothes were torn, his shoes mismatched, and his stomach growled from hunger. Yet his eyes, dark, wide, and alive, held the kind of hope only children who have nothing can possess. By day, he sold wilted wildflowers at traffic lights. By night, he slept under bridges or beside trash bins. He had no family, no possessions, and no guarantee of tomorrow. But he had something the world couldn't take, a heart untouched by bitterness. Every morning, he saved one flower for himself, a small act of defiance against despair. He'd whisper to it, "Still alive, huh? Then so am I." That evening, as he balanced his tray of flowers, a group of men outside a cafe spoke in hushed tones. "Did you hear? The LaVere girl's dying," one said. "Doctors say 10 days. Noah froze. The name meant nothing to him, LaVere, but something in that sentence stung. A girl dying while he was alive and breathing? It didn't seem fair. He glanced at the flower in his hand, a yellow daisy missing a petal. Without knowing why, he whispered, "Maybe she needs this more than I do." He placed the daisy on the cafe step and walked away, not realizing that small act of kindness had set destiny into motion. That night, as rain poured over the city, two souls, one wrapped in silk sheets and machines, the other in rags and courage, both stared at the same moon. Evelyn whispered into the silence, "I wish I could see something beautiful before I go." Miles away, Noah looked up and said softly, "If there's something I can do, just show me how." The heavens stayed quiet, but fate was already listening. In a world divided by wealth, two hearts had unknowingly called out to each other, one from a palace of sorrow, the other from the streets of survival, and by morning, their worlds would begin to collide in ways no one could have imagined. The morning after the rain, the city gleamed under a washed-out sky, its towers stretching like silver spears into the clouds. But beneath those towers, life was quieter, small, unseen, and often forgotten. Noah Carter stood at the gates of St. Grace Medical Pavilion, his bare toes curling against the pavement, his heart thudding like a drum inside his thin chest. He wasn't sure what had brought him here, maybe the daisy he'd left behind, or the whisper of a name he didn't know how to forget, the LaVere girl. Security guards towered at the entrance, sleek and polished in their black suits. Cameras blinked from every corner. This was no place for a street boy who smelled of dust and rain. But Noah had learned long ago that the world had cracks, and if you were small enough, brave enough, you could slip right through them. He waited until a delivery truck rolled up to the back gate. When the guards turned to check the paperwork, Noah darted underneath the tailgate, his little body hidden between crates of fresh fruit and oxygen tanks. The smell of diesel filled his lungs, but he didn't cough. He just whispered to himself, "Keep going." Minutes later, the truck stopped inside. He slid out and ran, weaving through corridors that smelled like bleach and quiet fear. His reflection flashed in the glass walls, a ghost among the living. He didn't know which room was hers. He just followed the sound of beeping monitors and hushed voices until he found a hallway where the air felt heavier, almost sacred. Through a half-open door, he saw her. She was smaller than he'd imagined, her face pale as porcelain, her hair spread over the pillow like gold threads. Tubes ran from her arms to glowing machines. But her expression, calm, distant, almost peaceful, made him forget where he was. Noah pressed a hand to the glass, his breath fogging the window. He didn't mean to make a sound, but a soft gasp escaped him. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a second their worlds collided. She saw a dark-skinned boy in tattered clothes staring at her like she was the only star left in the sky. And he saw not a dying girl, but someone fighting to stay alive. "Who are you?" Her voice was barely a whisper. He froze. I didn't mean to scare you." She blinked, weakly smiling. "You're not supposed to be here." "I know," he said softly, "but maybe I'm supposed to be anyway." For the first time in weeks, a laugh, faint but real, escaped her lips. "You're strange." "So are you," he said, stepping closer. "You're the girl everyone's talking about. The one with 10 days. Her smile faded. "You shouldn't believe everything people say." "Then tell me," he said, "what should I believe?" There was something in his voice, innocent but defiant, that made her chest ache. "Believe that sometimes," she whispered, "life doesn't play fair." He thought about that for a long moment before nodding. Then maybe someone should change the rules. Her laugh this time was fuller, echoing softly in the sterile room. And how would you do that? I don't know, he said, glancing at her machines. But if I can survive the streets, maybe you can survive this. Her eyes glistened. What's your name? Noah. I'm Evelyn. I know, he said simply, as if he'd known her forever. From that day on, Noah came back. Not through the front door, the guards would never allow it, but through vents, back corridors, even the laundry chute once. Every morning he brought something small, a wildflower, a folded paper crane, sometimes a half-eaten chocolate bar he'd saved just for her. And each time, Evelyn's room grew a little brighter. They talked for hours. He told her stories about the city, how pigeons fought for crumbs on the pier, how the rain sounded on metal rooftops, how he used to count shooting stars until he ran out of wishes. She told him about the world he'd never seen, sunsets from glass balconies, concerts under chandeliers, books that smelled of old ink and dreams. I wish I could see your world, Noah said one afternoon, sitting on the floor beside her bed. You wouldn't like it, she whispered. It's beautiful but lonely. Everyone smiles because they have to. He looked up at her and smiled. Then I'll just bring you mine instead. From that day he made it his mission. He painted her days with laughter, imitating nurses, singing off-key songs, even bringing a tiny street kitten he'd found behind a bakery. Evelyn named it Pebble. The kitten curled beside her feet, purring softly as if guarding her dreams. Her father noticed the change. For the first time in weeks, his daughter smiled. She ate more. She slept peacefully. The doctors called it temporary stabilization, but Alexander Levere knew better. This was something medicine couldn't measure. One evening, he followed the sound of laughter and saw them. His fragile daughter sitting up in bed, her cheeks glowing with color, talking to a boy dressed in rags, barefoot with eyes too wise for his age. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. Anger and gratitude battled inside him. When Noah noticed him standing there, he froze. I'm sorry, sir. I'll go. But Evelyn shook her head. No, please don't. Alexander looked at his daughter, then at the boy. Who are you? No one, Noah said. Just someone who didn't want her to be alone. Silence filled the room. Then the billionaire, whose life was ruled by control, did something he hadn't done in years. He let go. He nodded once. Then stay. From that night, Noah was no longer a stranger sneaking through shadows. He became part of Evelyn's days, a fragment of sunlight in a world that had forgotten how to shine. The nurses adored him. Even the doctors couldn't deny that her condition seemed to pause whenever he was near. On the 5th day, Evelyn turned to him and whispered, "They say I have 5 days left." He frowned. "Then I'll just find 5 reasons to make you stay." She smiled, the corners of her eyes wet. "You're too brave for someone so small." "I'm not brave," he said. "I'm scared every day. I just don't let fear be the boss." That night, as rain tapped against the glass, Evelyn wrote in her notebook again. A boy with nothing walked into my room and gave me the one thing everyone else had lost. Hope. Noah watched her sleep. The kitten curled at her feet and made a promise in the silence of his heart. He would not let her die, not while he was still breathing. Outside, the moon climbed higher, spilling silver over the city, over the hospital, over the bridge where Noah once slept, over a destiny that had only begun to unfold. By morning, he was gone. Only a note remained on her pillow, written in uneven letters. "Don't give up, Evelyn. I'm going to find a way." She pressed the note to her heart and whispered into the morning light, "Come back to me, Noah." And somewhere far from the city, the boy with nothing but courage began walking toward the impossible. The city was still sleeping when Noah left. He had no map, no money, and no shoes that could take him far. But he had something the world could not measure, a promise. The note he left for Evelyn had said, "Don't give up, I'll find a way." He whispered those same words to himself now as he walked into the dawn. His breath fogged in the cold air. His stomach growled. But every step carried a heartbeat of determination. He didn't know where to begin, only that somewhere beyond the city's steel towers, there had to be a cure. The hospital staff had spoken once, thinking no one else was listening, about a plant so rare it was believed to heal the incurable. a flower said to bloom only once every 10 years in the heart of an ancient desert, guarded by those who had given up on the world but not on miracles. That was all Noah needed to hear. He hitched a ride on the back of a vegetable truck heading toward the countryside. Wind lashed his face and dust stung his eyes, but he didn't let go. He imagined Evelyn lying in her hospital bed, her smile fading, her hands growing colder. He couldn't stand it. "Hold on, Evelyn," he whispered. "Just a little longer." Hours turned into days. He crossed small towns where people looked through him like he was invisible. Sometimes they tossed him bread, other times insults, but Noah never fought back. He saved every crumb, shared what little he had with stray dogs, and prayed each night beneath the stars. It was on the 5th night, as he slept beneath a rusted bridge, that he dreamed of her. Evelyn stood in a field of golden flowers, smiling, her hand reaching out. "You're almost there," she whispered. When he woke, he had tears on his face, and hope burning like fire in his chest. By the 7th day, Noah reached a desert village called Kalima. The air shimmered with heat. The ground cracked under his feet. He asked everyone he met about the plant, but most laughed at him. "Miracle flowers?" one old man scoffed. "You think life gives gifts that easy?" Another woman shook her head. "That plant doesn't exist, child. Go home before the sun burns you away." But Noah had no home to return to, and he refused to let doubt be louder than faith. He kept asking, kept searching, until one evening, as the sky bled orange and crimson, an old woman sitting by a fire called out to him, "You're the boy looking for the impossible." Noah turned. Her hair was white as salt, her eyes sharp and ancient. Around her neck hung beads made of carved bones. "Yes," he said, his voice hoarse. "Do you know where to find it?" The woman studied him silently for a long time. "You speak of the Solmara bloom, a flower that grows only when the world truly needs a miracle. Many have searched. None have returned." "I don't care," Noah said. "Someone I love is dying." "Love?" she repeated, almost smiling. "You're too young to know what that is." "I know enough," he said firmly. "It means doing anything for someone else, even if you get nothing back." The woman's gaze softened. She rose slowly and motioned for him to follow. They walked beyond the edge of the village into the endless desert where the stars began to awaken one by one. Finally, they reached a small hut made of clay and stone. Inside, the air smelled of herbs and ancient dust. Candles flickered around strange glass jars filled with dried roots and powders. "I am Mama Zuri," she said. "I once healed kings until I realized their hearts were too sick for medicine. Now I heal only those who believe." Noah stepped closer. "Then help me believe harder." Mama Zuri chuckled softly. "Careful, boy. Belief is not free." She poured water into a wooden bowl, murmuring words that sounded older than time. The surface rippled, revealing a faint image. Evelyn lying motionless in her hospital bed, her father clutching her hand, tears in his eyes. Noah gasped. "That's her!" Mama Zuri nodded. "Her life is fading like the last flame of a candle. The Solmara bloom can save her, but the desert demands a price for its mercy." "What kind of price?" "The flower feeds on pure intentions," she said. "If your heart is selfish, it will wither in your hands. But if your love is true," she paused, "it may take something from you in return." "I don't care," Noah said without hesitation. "Take anything, just let her live." Mama Zuri smiled faintly as if she had been waiting for that answer. "Then walk into the dunes before sunrise. Follow the wind that moves against the sand. When you find the bloom, listen. It will test your heart." She placed a tiny pouch in his palm. "This will carry its essence. Protect it with your life." Noah bowed his head. "Thank you." As he turned to leave, she added softly, "Remember, child, the greatest healers are not those who save lives, but those who give theirs without regret." The desert stretched endlessly, glowing silver under the moonlight. The wind howled, carrying whispers that sounded like voices. Noah walked barefoot across the dunes, his feet blistered, his lips cracked, but his spirit unbroken. Hours passed. The stars dimmed and dawn painted the horizon gold. Just as his strength began to fade, he saw it. A single flower blooming in the sand, its petals glowing faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. He dropped to his knees. "Please," he whispered. "She's all I have." The flower's stem shivered and a soft voice echoed inside his mind. "You would trade pain for love, suffering for hope. But love is not without cost. Will you give part of your life for hers?" He hesitated only a moment before whispering, "Yes, every part if I must." The petals unfurled and a beam of light spilled over his face. The desert wind roared, wrapping around him like invisible hands. For a moment everything was blinding and then silent. When the light faded, the flower was gone. In his trembling hands lay the pouch, now filled with a faintly glowing powder. His knees buckled and he gasped. He felt weaker, like a piece of his soul had been taken, but he smiled through the pain. "Worth it," he breathed. By the time the sun rose, Noah was already on his way back, limping, exhausted, clutching the pouch as if it were life itself. He didn't stop for food, for water, or for rest. Each step echoed a single thought. "She's waiting for me." As night fell again and the city lights appeared on the horizon, Noah's body gave out. He stumbled through the hospital doors, bleeding, dusty, and barely conscious. The guards rushed toward him, shouting, but he raised the pouch weakly in the air. "I found it," he whispered. "For Evelyn." Then he collapsed. The hospital lights burned through the night, bright as if the stars themselves had descended to watch what was about to happen. In the sterile hallway of the St. Grace Pavilion, chaos rippled through the staff. A boy, dust-covered, bleeding, and barely conscious, had collapsed at the entrance, clutching a small pouch that glowed faintly, like it was holding a fragment of the sun. When they realized who he was, whispers spread like wildfire. "The street kid, the one who visits Miss Levere." Doctors rushed him to the emergency wing, but even as they lifted his frail body onto the stretcher, his fingers would not release the pouch. He muttered through cracked lips, "For her, only for her." Alexander Levere stood frozen as they brought Noah in. He looked nothing like the boy who had made his daughter smile. He was broken, bruised, and burned by the sun, but in his small hand burned something miraculous. "What happened to him?" Alexander demanded. No one answered. They were too busy trying to save a boy who seemed beyond saving. Meanwhile, Evelyn's condition had worsened. Her heartbeat was shallow, her skin ice-cold, her lips pale as snow. The machines around her beeped erratically, alarms piercing the silence like cries of warning. The doctors whispered the same hopeless words Alexander had come to hate. "We've done everything. There's nothing more." But Noah's faint voice echoed through the corridor. "Yes, there is." The billionaire turned, disbelief and awe mixing in his eyes. Noah stood at the doorway, swaying weakly, supported by a nurse. His face was pale, his knees trembling, but his gaze burned with purpose. "I found it," he said softly. "The Solmara bloom." He stumbled to Evelyn's bedside. The pouch in his hand shimmered faintly as if responding to her heartbeat. Doctors tried to intervene, but Alexander raised a hand. "Let him." His voice cracked with something raw. Faith, fear, maybe both. Noah poured the glowing dust into a cup of warm water. The room filled with a faint fragrance, sweet, ancient, and alive. He held the cup to Evelyn's lips, whispering, "Drink this. You promised me you'd fight." The room went silent. Everyone held their breath. For a few moments, nothing happened. Evelyn lay still, her heartbeat flatlining on the monitor. A sound escaped Alexander, a strangled, broken cry as he fell to his knees. Noah's eyes filled with tears. He reached for her hand. "No," he whispered, voice trembling. "You can't leave, not now. I gave you everything, please." And then, a faint sound. Beep, beep, beep. The heart monitor blinked back to life. Evelyn's fingers twitched. Her chest rose slowly. Then she gasped. A deep, desperate breath that filled the room with shock and wonder. "Evelyn." Her father breathed, clutching her hand. She blinked open, her eyes dazed and glowing in the faint gold light. "Dad, Noah?" The boy smiled weakly, tears mixing with the dust on his cheeks. "Told you I'd find a way." Doctors rushed forward, scanning monitors, shouting in disbelief. "Her vitals are normalizing. Cell regeneration off the charts. This shouldn't be possible." But it was happening. Before their eyes, the dying girl was coming back to life. Alexander turned toward Noah. The man who owned half the world knelt before the child who owned nothing. "You saved her," he said, voice breaking. "You did what no amount of money could." Noah tried to speak, but his voice faltered. His legs buckled. The light that had burned in his eyes began to dim. "Noah," Evelyn cried, struggling to sit up. Doctors rushed to him, but he waved them away. "It's okay," he whispered. I gave her what was left of me." Evelyn's tears fell fast. She gripped his hand tightly. No, you can't go. We have so much left to see, he smiled faintly. You'll see it for both of us. His hand trembled as he reached toward her. Promise me one thing. Anything. Don't stop helping people. The world needs hearts like yours. Her voice cracked. And what about you? He laughed softly, the sound fading like wind through leaves. I'll be around. Maybe in every flower that grows where hope shouldn't. The monitor beside him slowed. Beep. Beep. And then silence. Evelyn's cry broke through the stillness, raw and full of grief. Alexander turned away, tears spilling down his face for the first time since childhood. The boy who had come from nothing, who had walked barefoot through deserts for love, was gone, but his miracle remained. Days passed. Evelyn recovered completely. The disease that science had declared invincible was gone without a trace. Her body was stronger, her spirit fiercer, yet every sunrise felt empty without Noah's laughter. She carried his note in her pocket everywhere she went, the edges worn and soft. Don't give up. Alexander couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that small boy's face, brave, smiling, fading. He had spent his whole life building towers of wealth, but now he realized the truest empire was the one built inside the heart. A month later, the billionaire gathered reporters in the grand hall that once hosted galas of vanity and greed, but this time the room was silent, draped in white lilies and daisies, the same flowers Noah had once sold on the streets. Alexander stepped up to the podium. His voice shook as he spoke. I once believed that power could buy life. I was wrong. A child with nothing showed me the true meaning of wealth. From this day forward, every dollar I own will serve the children the world forgets, and it will bear the name of the boy who reminded me what it means to live. He unveiled a plaque engraved in gold, the Noah Carter Foundation, for every child who still believes in miracles. Evelyn stood beside him, holding Pebble, the kitten Noah had given her. She smiled through her tears. In her heart she heard his voice, soft, playful, and eternal. See? You're smiling again. Years passed. Evelyn grew up and became the foundation's leader, traveling across countries to heal and help those who needed it most. Each time she visited a hospital, she'd find a daisy left by her window, a single yellow bloom missing one petal. Some said it was coincidence. Evelyn knew better. And sometimes when the city lights dimmed and the world felt still, she'd whisper to the stars, You did the impossible. Noah, you changed everything. The wind would stir softly, brushing her cheek like a small hand. Because some souls don't die, they just find new ways to shine.
If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon, because more powerful stories like this are coming your way.